Welcome back, Chevra, to our exploration of the Hashkafa of Vacation. Once again, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Prime Handyman, serving both Beit Shemesh and Jerusalem, to make really focusing on making sure your house is functional. Having a functional home, a beautiful home with a range of home repair services. Just make sure to call or WhatsApp Aaron Dahan. You'll find his details in the description of this video. So today's topic, we're going to be discussing something which really sits at the focus of everything we've been talking about, which is we can understand the Hashkafa of vacation, but how do we ensure that we have a good vacation? And a good vacation meaning something that accomplishes the goal that you wanted to achieve, right, which we've been discussing is to rejuvenate and to be able to come back to our work, to our jobs, to our lives in a more optimal state of being. And as we've seen in the last number of chaburas, the Torah relates to this desire for leisure in a positive way. And whether or not that desire for leisure is expressing itself, right, as recreation activities, right, where we have the opportunity to be able to spend some time outside of our regular schedule where we're focusing on what needs to get done, our bare responsibilities, and to be able to involve ourselves in our passions, in our in things that fascinate us, hobbies, interests, or whether or not this leisure is manifesting itself as in activities which enable us to be able to relax, right? As Rav Gerzi shared with us, where we don't like the big V word, even though we've named it the title of the series, but that's what everyone relates to, the vacation. We're speaking about rejuvenation, right? With J-E-W in between. That's what we do. We are here to rejuvenate. And as we discussed last time, it's such an important yesod, it's such an important foundation, right? Just like when it comes to our cars, right? We take them for tune-ups, right? And when it comes to our hardware, right, we're always making sure that we are getting the upgrades that we need, right, to be able to make sure that it functions most optimally. The reality is, at least for myself, right, I have a body, right? We have a body. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us, and it wasn't a b'diavad. Hashem wanted to create, right, the whole purpose of our existence here, right, is to focus in this world, and we have a body, and therefore we need to make sure that we are giving the proper attention for resting, exercising, nurturing our bodies, right, and taking the time off and giving ourselves permission to be able to just nurture and even pamper ourselves. I don't know why that word just came up, but sometimes you see vacations like spas and all these, going to the Dead Sea and going in mud and just sitting in the hot springs. And sometimes you wonder, that much, but yes, we find this is what the Chachamim did, right? We're told the Chamei Tiberia, right? When Chachamim would come to Eretz Yisrael, where would they go first? First, to the Chamei Tiberia, to the hot springs of Tiberia, in order to give their bodies the nurturing that was needed. Right, so we understand that this is not, even though we spoke about the historical explosion, right, of the leisure industry, right, in the last 100 years, this is a topic which has been discussed in the Torah going back ever since the beginning, right, and spoken about in a positive way. But the question is that how can we experience this vacation, and when to experience this vacation? Because we find, especially today, we have this boot camp idea. Right? And the boot camp idea is, right, once upon a time, right, that if a person, right, was going to learn a profession, person was going to learn a trade, it was understood you had to spend 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in order to be able to learn it. But now we're finding in the professional training, right, whether or not a person should do these programs or do a degree, it's a topic for a different conversation. It's something I'm discussing with people, all the time. But we find that we have this concept of the boot camp. And the concept of the boot camp, it's a funny term if you actually think about it. I know what a boot camp was when I was a kid. It was definitely the place I never wanted to go to. If you don't behave well, you're going to be sent to boot camp. But somehow the marketers turned boot camp into a positive vibe. We want to sign up for boot camps. But the idea of the boot camp, is that we're able to condense a lot of information, right, and a lot of time into one period. And if you go into this immersive environment, whether it's professional training, whether it's a Shalom Bayis course, whether it's personal development, we like microwaves. We do things quick, intense, bam, right? We have fast cookers, we have air fryers. We do things quickly. You are going to walk out a changed person. We have energy drinks, we have super vitamins. Take it once, focus, and that will give you what you need for a long time. The question is we need to ask ourselves, does that work when it comes to rejuvenation? Right? Is it enough for us? Is it enough for us to burn out the candle, for the whole entire year, and then that 5 days, that 7 days, that 2 weeks, we're just gonna shut off and we're going to rejuvenate. And that's going to enable us to be able to be the most optimal and productive people that we can in all the areas of our life. So the truth is, maybe it's not enough. Maybe we need to be integrating aspects of leisure into our regular schedules, into our regular lives, into our regular busy, responsibility-driven, day-to-day, in the grind. We need to make sure to slot out time daily, weekly, so that we're able to rejuvenate, or we're able to dedicate time so we can fill up in those parts of our lives, right, that give us energy, but we're not necessarily able to do it in our day-to-day jobs. So the truth is, that's really where the Arba Yesodis, right, the Dalet Yesodis, the whole Arba Yesodis program, right here in Pilzno, is for us to be able to build in a holistic way of living, so that we have things like focus on physical health, right, and nurturing ourselves built into our regular schedule. And in our work-life course, right, that I believe I mentioned in the past, which this segment is really coming out of, we spend time on how to be able to build that into our schedule, into our work-life balance, as they like to call it, to make sure that we have the ability to experience this on a regular basis so that we don't end up coming to burnout. But at the same time, we know, right, and this is something which we see in Torah, we see how it manifests itself right into the different cycles of the year, that there is a value of having a condensed amount of time in order to be able to focus on something. We have the Yom Tovim, right? When it comes to the Yom Tovim, right, when it comes specifically to Pesach, when it comes to Sukkot, we have an island of time, right? And if we think about the way that the Yom Tovim, these Chagim should be, the way that they should be, and Be'ezras Hashem, they'll be very soon. They were a big retreat, at least for the men. At least for the men. All right, you're laughing. Okay, for the women also. Okay, they used to come at some point. But for the men, it was this big retreat. You can imagine, especially before we had the forms of transportation that we have, people would spend weeks traveling just to come to Yerushalayim, and then to be in Yerushalayim, right? And then to go back home. It was a big island of time, stopping from the regular day-to-day and getting ourselves into what was the energy of Sukkot, the energy, right, of Pesach, the energy of Shavuos. And therefore we understand that when we have a condensed period of time, when we have a consecutive period of time, right, that it's not just one day, right, but we're able to just focus on something that is able to fill us up. So the answer is that perhaps, and this is something which each one of you need to think for yourself, for your lifestyle, where it's also going to be dependent, on your stage of life. It's going to be dependent, like we spoke previously, about what type of job that you're in, but to consider that we need to be able to inject this aspect of leisure, right, this aspect of rejuvenation into our regular schedules, but at the same time to recognize, right, that taking a chunk of time and to dedicate towards it so that we can fill up is also something which is very, very positive. Now, the question is that, okay, you've convinced me, or I was already convinced, but now I've become more inspired because I'm already sitting on my beach chair, right, while I'm watching this, out in wherever I am. Okay, how do I make this vacation effective? Because I know that it's not as simple. It's not as simple as it may seem. It may seem simple, at least, the way that it's presented. I'm going on vacation. Amazing. Vacation means that you're going to come back rejuvenated. But from my own experience, and it's heard from others as well, that doesn't always work out. Often we may come back from our vacation more exhausted than we were even before we went on our vacation. So the first step, we're going to map out a few steps that each one of us can take in order to be able to have that effective vacation rejuvenation time. And the first step is for each one of us to know what our needs are. Now you may be thinking, okay, that's very, very simple. Wait till we know what my needs are. But the truth is that it may not be so simple. There's an amazing medrash you have in front of you, the Mara Makomos, right, that's always been a favorite ever since I heard this idea from one of my Rebbeim, from Rav Moshe Weinberger. It's always set with me for years ago. And the medrash is speaking about a conversation that takes place between Moshe Rabbeinu and Yoshua. Right, as Moshe Rabbeinu descends the mountain, right, after spending the time in Shemayim, and Yoshua is waiting at the foot of the mountain. Right, so as they start to walk back, they hear a noise that's coming from the camp, coming from Machane Yisrael. And at that point, Yoshua expresses his concern. He expresses a concern to his Rebbe, to Moshe Rabbeinu, that the noise that he hears, right, the sounds that he hears are coming out, right, of the camp are sounds of rebellion. Right, they're sounds of Jews that have strayed from the path. As we know, they were involved, right? We're told in the Psukim, they were involved in the Egel Azav, they were involved in doing Averas. But here we have this amazing lashon, the pasuk in Shemais Perek Lamed Beis, pasuk Yud Ches, where Moshe Rabbeinu says, "V'yomer ein kol anos gevura ve'ein kol anos chalusha, kol anos ani shomea." The Moshe Rabbeinu says, Yoshua, I want to tell you something, right? That those sounds that you hear, where you're hearing sounds of rebellion, that's not what I hear. Kol anos ani shomea. What I hear are sounds of suffering. What I hear are sounds of confusion. The Medrash in Rabbah Koheles tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu gave a very strong musar to Yoshua, where he says to Yoshua, "Mi she'asid linhag shrara a Yisrael eno mavchin ben kol lekol." How can it be that you, someone who is destined to be the leader of the Jewish people, who's going to be leading all of Am Yisrael to its final destination, doesn't have the ability to be able to distinguish between one sound and another sound? What was Moshe Rabbeinu saying? So Rav Weinberger taught over an idea from Rav Schwab, and Rav Schwab says such an important yesod, that often when we hear something, right, when we see the action of another person, it's possible to touch up that action with a certain paradigm. That we may think, if we see a child misbehaving, he's mischievous. He's trying to make trouble. He may hear words from someone which seems like they're insulting us. It may seem like they don't have good midos, right? It may seem like they're a bal gaiva. It may seem that they're haughty. But Rav Schwab says is that we have to have the ability to be able to to be able to listen deeply and hear what's really being said. What's really being said. I just heard this. I saw a little clip from Rav YY. He was speaking about what's underneath anger, and he explained this yesod as well. He was saying that what's underneath anger is a person who's in pain. Rav Gerzi speaks about this all the time, right? That if sometimes you may have a negative interaction with someone, and somebody snaps at you, right? That we have to have the ability to realize what's going on with this person right now. Why did he just snap at me? Right? And your response, as Rav Gerzi says, you should ask him, "Are you okay?" Right? Instead of getting insulted, instead of getting defensive, instead of yelling back, ask them, "Are you okay?" Because if somebody is snapping at you, something must be bothering them. And therefore, what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying to Yoshua was, yes, maybe Yoshua, you're hearing a behavior. I don't know what they were saying. They're probably some sort of type of Egel Azav chant. Yoshua was right, meaning in essence he was right because they were rebelling. But Moshe Rabbeinu Right? Moshe Rabbeinu had the ability to be able to hear deeper, and he understood that what was really going on underneath this action was was a people who were confused. They were just taken out of Mitzrayim. Moshe Rabbeinu was their savior. He was their father figure. They thought that he was gone, and they were confused. They were in pain, and they were suffering. And Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, if you want to be able to be manhig other people, if you want to be able to lead the Jewish people, you have to be able to not get caught up in the externals of what you see, but to be able to hear what's really being expressed. And this is such an important yesod over here, because when it comes to understanding what our needs are, we have to ask ourselves, what's taking place in my life right now? Right? What is it that I need a break from? Right? Very often people will just externally say, I need a vacation from work. But what is it about work? What is it about work? Is it that you need time off from your boss? Right? Is it that you need quiet time? What is it about work that you need a break from? Right? When it comes to family, right? People may feel, okay, I need a break. When we're planning out our vacations, we need to consider what type of vacation should we be taking, because we have to understand what is our need right now. Right? Sometimes it may make sense to take a vacation, right? Just you and your spouse without your kids. Because if what you need right now, if the burnout that you're experiencing right now, right, is from being with too many people, right, or being around certain people that trigger you, so then what you might need is to be able to spend some time away from them, right? Or I'm not sure how popular this is in the United States, but here in Israel, it's very, very common that you'll find vacation getaways just for women. They don't have enough just for men. I think they figure for men they get to go to mikvah on Erev Shabbos, Leil Shishi, they could get some kugel. It's good enough for them. I think they're subconsciously, it might be because we always go to shul. But for the women, they have vacation getaways. But I see for men also. I see for men as well. This idea of a person, you may say, what does that mean? Where's your shalom bayis? You're going on vacation without your spouse. But there is a reality that perhaps what would be best for you, or perhaps what would be best for a person in a specific situation, would be to spend some time away. Because that is what's going to enable them to be able to rejuvenate. Right? Is a person feeling burnt out? And this may sound bad what I'm about to say right now. Burnt out from their regular schedule of learning Torah. If a person's experiencing those signs of burnout, remember, poor performance, just sitting there with the Gemara and falling asleep, exhaustion, right? A person starting to feel negative about what he's learning, not coming with the same excitement to be able to show up and to show up on time, right? Suddenly we start skipping a seder, right? We're not showing up for our chavrusa. If that is something which is going on, so we need to listen. Right, not to just see the external behavior. What's going on? Maybe I need to be able to spend some time learning something different. Right? Maybe I'm on a regular schedule. I'm always doing daf yomi, right? Or I spend a seder where I'm learning and I'm always doing this, and I don't have a freedom to choose what I want to learn. And I need to spend some time on my vacation. Once again, a kvias of learning, but to choose to learn something different. Maybe that's what we need. Right? Is the exhaustion that I'm experiencing physical, or is the exhaustion that I'm experiencing emotional? Right? Is it intellectual? For us to be able to understand what is being manifested, which may not always look like what's out there externally. Step number two, right? Once we've defined for ourselves, right, what is our need right now, for us to clarify, how am I going to get that? And an important principle that we find, it's a very validating and empowering chazal, right? You might have seen it before, Gemara and Brachos, that says, Kashem shepartzufehem einam doimim kein deosehem einam doimais. That there's a reality of the fact that just like I don't have an expectation that there's someone out there in the world that looks exactly like me, and you probably don't have an expectation, unless you're an identical twin, that there's someone that looks just like you. That doesn't bother us. In fact, we may like that someone doesn't look exactly like you. It makes you feel more unique. So the Chazal tell us that just like the faces of people, just like people's faces are not the same, so too when it comes to people's opinions, when it comes to people's personalities, when it comes to people's way that they express things, those also are different. And the reason why Chazal emphasize this is that because, at least I know I'm guilty of this, that we can come to relate, and this is the way that many people live their whole entire lives, is that the way that we see things, the way that we experience things, we project that onto others. It must be that if that's what brings me satisfaction, if that's what gives me a geschmack, if that's what makes me feel close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I still remember that the first time that one of my children is in a choir. That's fine. Thank you. One of my children is in a choir where they have a presentation of chazanos. And they have like the boys' choir and then they have chazanos. So I was at this event to be supportive for him. And I was sitting, at this event listening, and they're announcing world famous, I can't imagine how much money they charge. And it was a real big treat to have these specific chazanim. Right, these specific chazanim, and I was sitting over there, not enjoying myself, to say the least. Once again, personal experience, not at all chas v'shalom about chazanim or anything about these particular chazanim. But for the first time, I had this insight. I'm like, now I understand, those people, right, that I was never able to understand before. What am I speaking about? So I personally am somebody that, when it comes to davening, I like to go to a minyan where they're singing. I've spent many years, going to more of a karbach minyan where there's a lot of singing. And it's something which gives me a very big geschmack. And for a while I can't understand, there's people that wouldn't want to daven there, or when they go there, they're like rolling their eyes, like, get me out of this place. And I understood. I can be in an experience where which other people, I'm looking around these people, and these people are mesmerized, inspired, they're like crying from this, and they're crying from joy and death. I was like, please, get me out of this place. But people are different. But many of us live from a place where we expect that other people have a similar experience to us. And this is so important because when it comes to what is it that rocks, what is it that fills me up, what is it that energizes me, that type of vacation that's going to energize me, right? And that type of rejuvenation that's going to make me feel, wow, I feel like a new person. It's going to be different for each person, and even for yourself. We don't normally do this, but special for this series, if you send us a message, we've created a list, which is part of our work balance course, breaking down different types of rejuvenation activities and different types of relaxation activities. Broken down, for some people, it's gardening, right? For some people, it's mountain climbing. For some people, it's journaling, right? For some people, it's meditating in a forest, right? For some people, it's painting, right? For some people, it's jumping out of a plane, right? For some people, it could be, boating, fishing. We need to be aware for ourselves. How are we going to get that need? So if we need to experience more rejuvenation, if we need to experience more excitement, what is it for me? And I can't necessarily look at what it is for other people, because I have to know what is it that gives it specifically for what my needs are. While at the same time understanding, right, which is number 3, which is very much connected, which is to be able to work together with others. Because as I mentioned, this Gemara in Brachos, about the fact, right, that my experience might be different than your experience, and your experience may not help me to understand what I need for my experience. The reality is that if we're going on vacation with other people, we need to be able to work together. And here we have another teaching which is really along the lines of this Medrash and Shemos that we said, right, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Moshe Rabbeinu, where Hashem speaking to Moshe, Moshe speaking to Hashem, and Moshe Rabbeinu is asking from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're going to now choose a leader, right, who's going to be leading the Jewish people. Right, we mentioned this recently in a Parsha Shir. What is the quality that I see from my own experience that's needed to be matzliach and being a leader of Am Yisrael? So we have over here, Bamidbar, right in Parshas Pinchas, the lashon that Moshe Rabbeinu says is Elokei Ruchos. Elokei Ruchos. What's Elokei Ruchos? Right, a God that understands spirits. Right, so Rashi points out, quoting the Medrash, Lama Nemar Amar Lefanav. So why does it say this? So Amar Lefanav, Ribono Shel Olam, Moshe Rabbeinu said, Galore v'yadu lefanacha, daito shechol echad ve'echad, einan domin zelazev. If there's anyone that knows this Chazal of She'ein partufeim, einan domim kach, deoseim einan domais, it's you. It's me too, because I see what it's like. But you know HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You know that people are different. When you choose the next leader who's going to replace me, choose someone who has the ability to tolerate, to be able to tolerate different people. Because you know HaKadosh Baruch Hu that people have different needs, and we need to have somebody who understands what other people's needs are, understands that one person's needs could be totally different from another person's needs, understand the context and to be able to meet each one's needs. And therefore, right, when it comes to planning this vacation, this rejuvenation, to understand, right, that one person's idea of the most exciting, rejuvenating, exhilarating vacation, right, going hiking. I have a son who's, he's very into, off-road vehicles. That is not my idea of a vacation. But for him, that's something which is extremely exciting for him, right? That gives him a sense of chiyus, that gives him a sense of vitality, right? Another person's idea of vacation, right? Traveling and going to this location and that location and going to 17 different places within a span of 48 hours, right? For that person, wow, that's like he's been waiting for this whole entire year. That's going to give him koyach and energy, that he's going to be able to come back alive and pumped. For another person, that's just stress. That's just anxiety, right? And another person's vacation, right? This one's mine, just sitting in a forest, taking in a view, laying down on a beach chair with a beer, right? With a beer. That's another person's nightmare. That's like, get me out of here. That's like my experience sitting, in that Chazana's presentation. It's just like, okay, like when are we going to start vacation already? What are you doing? Like, okay, we did this. All right, let's, this is not about falling asleep. This is not about being dead. This is about vacation. This is about filling up and becoming energized. So what we need to do is that we need to invest in this process. We need to invest in this process because, yes, it may take time. But if you think about how much time we spend on planning a vacation, looking at deals, looking at reviews, speaking to people, getting ideas. We can spend so much time on the vacation. But what we need to be doing is we need to start with our why. We need to clarify these 3 steps to understand what are my needs for this upcoming vacation that I'm taking, or if right now you're sitting in a vacation, it's not too late. It's never too late. What are my needs right now? Why did I need this vacation? What are those things that are going to be able to help me to be able to get there, right? And third of all, right, how can I do this in a way which is going to work with others? Because if we're working with others, it may look like, and I know this is something that I've personally implemented on vacations that I've been on. Let's say you're going away for a few days, or you're going away for a week. It could be, right, that you need to isolate this day or this activity. That's really what's going to be my rejuvenation time. Yes, maybe those other days, this is going to be for my spouse, this is going to be for my wife, this is going to be for my husband, this is going to be for this kid, that's going to be for that kid. That's what's going to be able to really give them that feeling. And we all need to work with each other. That's what we need to do. But to make sure that somewhere within your vacation, somewhere within that time, that you give yourself that nurturing that you need. So what do we do, though, if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, inspiring, amazing. You just inspired me to go on vacation. But I can't. What do you do? What if you can't take vacation? What if it's just not working out? You don't have vacation days. It's something you can't afford right now, right? You have other things in your life. You feel that need, that you're burnt out. You feel the need for the vacation, but you're not able to do it. So the good news is that if you follow through the process of what we've been discussing here in the Chabur, if you understand the root of what your burnout is, if you know what's going to help you, you can be creative. You can be creative to create that experience, for yourself. For example, let's say a person goes through this process and realized, he's had a busy quarter, right? He's been dealing with so many deadlines. He's been dealing with so many different people. He's been dealing with so many headaches. I'm just feeling like my system is overworked, right? Like when a computer is overheating. Right? And what I just need to do is I need to rejuvenate. I need to spend time in nature. And what I would love to do is be able to take a few days, go up to the mountains, go camping, right? Or go on a hike, bring my deck chair, bring my lawn chair, just sit there and to just take in nature. Because you know that for yourself, once again, this may not be for everyone, but if you know for yourself that nature is something that gives you that's something which you want to do. But you can't go on vacation. So what can you do? So what can you do is you can try to create that experience for yourself. If you're in Beit Shemesh or Jerusalem, you can give a call to Rav Aaron Dahan. He can come, make you a nice pergola, right? Make sure that your yard has all of the different anemones, everything that's needed, so that therefore you're able to experience that relaxation, even where you are. And what I would say is, especially today, because we've just been through a period. It's funny, when I was just having a conversation with someone yesterday, we were talking about February 2020, and like how so much has changed. Through what we've been through the last couple of years through COVID, one of the benefits that's come out of that is that we've been challenged to find ways that we can be creative, even if we're not able to leave our homes. Now, I probably shouldn't say this without sponsorship, but you can, lots of different films that you can see, nature films. We won't say which company yet, but you can be in touch, we can arrange it. But you can watch, and this is what happened over COVID. What happened over COVID? Virtual concerts, virtual zoos were set up. After that, I was like, why should I ever go to the zoo again? They set up a live camera. I can watch the monkey eat. I can watch, the hippo jump in the pool. It's gewaldic. Why do I need to go to a zoo? Everything. We have the ability today. For us, virtual magic shows. I remember at a certain point over COVID, I believe it was over Sukkot, we decided, my wife and I, to be able to run like a hotel program inside of our house with activities, right, and a swimming pool. And we saw how creative we can be to be able to create that vacation experience, whether for you it's rejuvenation, or whether for you need an eschadshus, you need a hisrachavus, you need to feel a sense of expansion, you need to feel a sense of newness, right? How we're able to do that even if we're home. The key though is what we're discussing here today, is that we have to take the time to understand within ourselves, what is the root of my burnout? What area of life is it taking place? What is the way that I personally am able to fill up? Right? Once again, if you need some help to figure it out, just message us and we will send you our Pilzno work-inspired list of different types of activities, so you can help identify for yourself what is it that helps to fill you up, and then to see what can I do in order to be able to experience that rejuvenation, experience that hischadshus, to experience the recreation in a way that also has shalom bayis and peace together, so that everyone's needs are met. Once again, I thank you very much to our sponsor, Prime Handyman, where you will get quality service that you can rely on. Have a relaxed day.